Okay, for our second video on recovery and really celebrating, 10 years of our community and 12 years of ditching the mental illness diagnosis, I wanted to talk about an approach to mental health, the mental fitness approach, and why that's so useful. But it is to address the question that often comes up, hey, if I do this mental health work, am I going to get rid of the anxiety? Am I going to get rid of the intrusive thoughts, the violent images? Will I be able to focus? I'm not going to struggle with these voices anymore. I won't feel like an imposter. I won't keep messing up my relationships, etc. And what I like to say is that the question is wrong. It's like going into the gym and saying, hey, if I do this exercise stuff, am I not going to struggle to lift the groceries anymore? And if you lift weights, you won't struggle to lift the groceries anymore. But if your goal is to avoid an unwanted experience, I would expect you to actually continue to struggle. Because if we want to get into great shape, if we want to improve our level of fitness, whether that's physical fitness or mental fitness, it's going to be about wanting to have difficult experiences. And even if we get to the point where we can lift the groceries without struggling, that's going to be because we want to go and lift heavier things. And the same is true with mental health. Absolutely, I don't struggle with any of the intrusive thoughts and violent images and anxiety and depression and etc. that I did in the past. But that's from wanting to do much more difficult things and learn the skills to have any experience inside my head or outside of it in the real world. First, I'll share 3 characteristics of a mental fitness approach to mental health. We'll look at why that's important and how that differs from our typical approach to mental illness. And then we'll look at a mental fitness approach in practice. So what would this look like in terms of us tackling the kinds of challenges our brains love to throw up? So 3 characteristics of a mental fitness approach to mental health. First, difficult experiences are not problems. Right? They're actually the things we want to go and have and learn how to handle. We want to go in the gym and pick up the heavy weights. We're not, if we go for a run and it's difficult, our heart is pounding and we're gasping for breath and our body is leaking, we're sweating, our muscles are sore, and we feel that afterwards, maybe even, the next day after a big leg day at the gym and we struggle to sit on the toilet, we don't see that as a disorder. After that run, after that big leg day in the gym, we call that a good workout. So with taking a mental fitness approach to mental health, we don't see difficult human experiences as a problem. They're not a disorder. The second characteristic of the mental fitness approach is that we don't expect to have skills and capacities we haven't learned and built. Yeah, just like physical fitness. If you haven't learned how to swim and somebody pushes you off the boat into the water and you start to drown, you don't have a drowning disorder. There's no reason why you would know how to swim. The same is true with mental health. If you haven't learned how to interact with thoughts, intrusive thoughts, if you haven't learned how to experience anxiety while doing the things you care about, why would you have that capacity? If you haven't been practicing how to give your attention and your focus to things you want to give it to in a chaotic world with so many distractions, of course you wouldn't have that capacity. We have to build physical flexibility, just like we have to build psychological flexibility. We have to build capacities like endurance, just like we have to build capacities like focus. It would only be weird if we just naturally had these capacities. It would be strange, right, if somebody walked into the gym never having lifted weights and they were just like picking up all of the plates and running around with them. That's strange. But if you've never lifted weights before and you go in the gym and you struggle to lift weights, that's totally natural. if you haven't worked on learning healthy skills to interact with big uncertainties and trauma in life, of course you are going to struggle with that, and it's gonna be difficult. And the third characteristic of the mental fitness approach is that we focus on the skills we're building rather than natural human experiences we hate. So what this looks like, again, same as with physical fitness. If it's your first day at swimming class and you get in that pool and you start kicking your legs and flailing your arms, you're a swimmer. Don't keep saying, oh, you're just recovering from a drowning disorder. Oh, how long is it going to take until you recover from it? No, you're there, you're learning skills, and you'll continue to be able to build skills around swimming, and you can keep those skills in your life and grow that practice forever. Same with mental health. I want to learn skills to do the things I value. I want to develop focus. I want to build psychological flexibility. And those are skills I'll be able to practice forever and just keep on growing them. This, I find, is a really important characteristic, particularly when we look at the mental health care system and stigma around mental illness. Because imagine where physical fitness would be at. If in order to join a gym, you first had to get diagnosed as having a disorder, and we labeled you as having an illness. Like we said, oh, you have a weakness disorder. How many people would want to exercise if the prerequisite was getting labeled as having a disorder they had to fix? No, we focus it around, hey, what do you want to build? We recognize that when you're working on those skills, you're building strength, you're building speed and endurance, you're developing flexibility. By focusing the entire system around skills we want to build, it makes it much more appealing and supportive to people. Whereas we've really screwed over the mental health system by entirely focusing it around problems and labeling people as problems that need fixing. The reason this is so important for recovery and sustaining that and growing that and building mental health skills is because the way we've typically approached mental health and mental illness actually makes it worse. Avoiding experiences does not make us better at them. It's like if somebody avoids sweating, eventually everything's going to make them sweat. And if somebody avoids anxiety, eventually everything is going to make them anxious. Think about a person who just wants to avoid drowning versus a person who wants to learn how to swim. So if the person who wants to avoid drowning says, like, I have this drowning disorder, I really want to avoid drowning, and so they're going to avoid the ocean, right? Pretty easy, just don't go near the ocean, don't go near any lakes, stay away from big puddles, only have showers, no baths. Maybe they'll join a support group for people who struggle with drowning. And you know what, if that's what that person wants to do, like, that's totally fine. Like, they will avoid drowning. But the person who wants to learn how to swim, they're going to develop all sorts of useful skills for doing the things they want to do in life. In fact, that body of water they may have struggled with in the past, it can now become a medium through which they actually move, something that they can approach as a fun skill to learn how to navigate, something they can use to go places they want to go in life. And that doesn't mean it won't be a struggle. They'll probably still, get in that water, and it's going to be difficult, and they're going to have to grow skills, and they're going to have to bring in all sorts of supports in their life. But they're going to develop skills that free them to do more in life. Whereas the person who just wants to avoid drowning, they're going to have to keep shrinking their life. And the more they shrink it, the more difficult it's going to be to take steps out of that cage that they build. And at first that cage can feel like it's protecting us. I know for me, it felt that way. Like, oh, this thing, I can't handle this. Or if I go to this place, it's going to bring up these thoughts. I don't want to have those thoughts. So I'm going to avoid that place or this relationship or that job, whatever. And it feels at first that it's protecting you. Like steel bars we're placing down to keep out the bad things. But eventually we realize that those steel bars we're placing down to keep out bad things are not keeping out the bad things, they are simply keeping us trapped. They're keeping us in and getting in the way of living our lives. Now, what does a mental fitness approach look like in practice? First of all, it's going to be focusing on where we want to go, right? It's not about the problem. So it's not about saying, oh, I've got this drowning disorder, I want to avoid the water. It's about saying, hey, you see that island over there in the lake? I want to swim to that island. Doesn't mean the problem just magically disappears. Of course, I don't know how to swim to that island, and if I get in the water right now, I'll really struggle. Just like there might be something I want to do in life, but I step out to do it right now, and I struggle and flail around in a lake of anxiety. Totally okay, right? I want to learn how to move through that anxiety to go where I want to go. But we start with focusing it around something we really care about. So to give you an example of an exercise, so I really wanted to write. I wanted to write a book, write books, plural, just generally write. But of course, over the years, because I always thought I had to avoid anxiety, avoid intrusive thoughts, manage depression, control the entire universe, essentially, with so many different compulsions that I'd develop all these rules around writing to the point that I couldn't write. Right? I built that cage, I thought, protecting my writing, protecting me, so that I could write in the right way. But of course, I was trapping myself. Eventually, I couldn't write. So first of all, I say, look, I want the skill to write. I want to build that capacity. Then it's about looking at how I can step into difficult experiences and practice doing that thing I want to do. So I had all of these rules around writing in particular ways and certain ways. I started setting up exercises to practice writing in the wrong places, in the wrong ways, with wrong feelings. So that was things like going to a busy mall food court we had practice writing around all this noise, but also, of course, a food court in my head was like not a place where you can write important things. I did this exercise for a while where I would write blog posts and publish them on my bus trip to work. So I had a very short period of time. I couldn't do all the rereading and rewriting and trying to control what people would think I did in the past. So yeah, it created all sorts of anxiety and uncertainty when I would write quickly, not reread it, and then share it, knowing that people were going to read it. And that's lifting the weights, right? I look at, okay, what's the difficult thing that I think I can't do? And I say, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to practice that. And at first, it's going to be really difficult. But key to this is that I was also doing something that I really care about. Building mental fitness skills, building capacity, doesn't it just have to be about, you don't just make yourself go and do something you hate and that's really stressful because you're not going to enjoy it and you're going to burn out. It's still just like in physical fitness about picking things that you really want to do, building capacities that are going to support you in your goals in life, in the relationships that you really care about, in doing the things you enjoy. So let's continue to share that practice together, not about fixing some totally natural human experiences, but building the skills that we want to have in our lives that are going to help us do the things we want to do. They're going to help us give to ourselves and give to those around us.